Okay, well, welcome everybody. We actually have a very special guest here with us tonight. I was actually just introduced to this woman this past month, I want to say, that we actually got connected, and we met through a mutual friend of ours. So it's my life coach, Stacy Smith, who she knows as well. And Angie and I are actually both life coaches, and she also said that she wanted to do a podcast. So she reached out to me this past week and we had a wonderful conversation. And I told her, I was like, hey, what better way to know more about podcasts than being on mine? I said, I'm actually looking for somebody this week to interview. So would you like to be the next woman that I interview? And so she agreed to it. So without further ado, I introduce you to Angie Gross. So Angie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a life and weight loss coach for moms. My story kind of started where on a deployment, I actually work full-time for the military and part-time as the life and weight loss coach. And so when I deployed for a year, I was training to run a marathon. And a lot of the people that were running with me, a lot of my friends, I seen them make tremendous changes. They were losing 50 pounds, and I was able to be there and encourage them and motivate them, and they motivated me back because I was seeing them do all this stuff with all these obstacles that really inspired me. And so when I got home, I started to pursue personal training. And so I went and I got a ACE certified personal training certification and started my own business as a personal trainer. And I discovered that a lot of people weren't motivated when it came to fitness. And I didn't quite know why. I just knew a lot of people weren't motivated. So then I actually turned to financial coaching for a little while, and I noticed that same pattern where people just weren't motivated to pay off debt. And so that's when I knew there was a missing piece. And I started looking into life coaching, and I discovered my mentor, Brooke Castillo, and started listening to her podcast regularly. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is the missing piece for all these issues that people are coming across when either wanting to lose weight, when wanting to pay off debt, when just wanting to change their lives. And so I went and got certified through the life coach school with Brooke Castillo. And that's how I discovered Stacy, since she's also a certified life coach through the life coach school. And so then that's just kind of my story. I'm a mom myself. I lost 30 pounds myself, and I know the struggles of being a mom and the time constraints and working and trying to be a good wife and everything that goes into that, and kind of your health gets put on the back burner. Mm-hmm. And so I've wanted to help moms through those struggles and ultimately help them lose weight.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I think that's something that a lot of women can relate to. I think that I've said this a million times, but we as moms, we always put everybody else's needs before our own. And so no matter what, if it's, our bodies, mental, physical, whatever it is, it's just all about them and however they are. And you kind of don't realize how much you let yourself go until you take a step back and you realize that maybe it's gotten out of control, or then you don't even know where to begin. So starting at the beginning, how old are your kids? How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I have one kid. He is going to be 3, Sebastian. And he definitely keeps me busy. And even dealing with the mom guilt of working full time, plus trying to build a business, plus trying to keep my health and fitness a priority, being in the military and having to. There's a lot of challenges that go into being a mom and being an entrepreneur.
So how do you juggle all of that? Because, being a full-time mom, pursuing your business, keeping yourself as a priority as well. How do you handle all of that? Do you set aside you time, or is it just you've got different blocks of time? How do you approach that?
So I really practice planning. That's one thing that I've learned also from Brooke Castillo, is that when you plan, you actually create freedom for yourself, and you actually create more time. And so I have my 40 hours a week. That's already set in stone. Not much can be moved with that. But then in the evenings, I definitely plan, and I'm very deliberate with my time, that I have sections blocked out for when I'm writing my newsletter, when I'm going to be podcasting, when I do interviews, when I do my own coaching. All of that is pretty tight schedule. So that's how I end up managing all of it. And then I don't feel that guilt when I actually do spend the time with my son, because I'm not focusing on what I should have been doing for work. And when I'm working, I'm not focusing on, oh, I should be hanging out with my kid right now. So it really does balance out really well.
I think that that is a huge piece, what you said, because being a stay-at-home mom and then trying to also watch my kids and play with them and be present with them, I felt like that struggle, because there was a point where I wasn't really planning out my time and I wasn't creating a schedule. I love a schedule, but I was just kind of like, oh, it'll fit in wherever it was. Well, then when I wasn't really planning for it and really blocking that time and sticking to it and honoring that time, then everything else would be like, okay, well, maybe I'll get to it tomorrow. And then things kept getting pushed back. And so I have actually started doing that, where like, okay, the night before I say, these are the top 3 things that I want to get done tomorrow, and knowing that I will get them done, and making sure that, okay, so even if I have to wake up a little bit earlier, and then I've got the time to spend with my kids, because I wasn't present. Like you said, I was always constantly thinking about all the things that were on my to-do list. And that really does help you stay more present as a mom.
Yeah. And I think also too, being an entrepreneur, you can excel so much faster when you can focus on your work versus only being halfway into your work and worrying about what's going on with the family.
Yes, absolutely. And as an entrepreneur, you know that like you have to be more disciplined than I think anybody else, because you're the only one that's staying on top of you, and you're the only one that you have to set your schedule and know what you have to do to be successful. But with the weight loss part of it, so were you in the shape that you wanted to be before you got pregnant, and then it was easy to kind of have the weight fall off afterwards? Or was that anything that you struggled with? Or how did you bounce back after Sebastian?
Okay. So my story kind of started right after high school. Before I graduated high school, I was like 110 pounds. Maybe at my max, I was 120. So a perfect weight for myself then. And then I graduated high school and went on to college and gained quite a bit of weight. I want to say maybe 20 or 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I was able to lose some. I played the yo-yo game over and over and over again for literally the last 14 years. And so after I lost the weight for my wedding, I gained it back. And then I deployed and lost the weight again because I trained for a marathon. Once I got home, I gained it back. And once I had Sebastian, while I was pregnant, I gained 50 pounds. Mm-hmm. And after Sebastian came along, I was still 20 pounds overweight from what I was before I got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I started to get into this mentality that what I weigh is what I weigh. I'm a mom now. Mm-hmm. You know, I kind of started to accept the fact that this is who I am now, and which then kept me stuck in that spot. And once I discovered Brooke Castillo, she teaches cutting out flour and sugar. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's no way I could cut out flour and sugar, but okay, I'll cut out the flour. I'll at least go gluten-free, because at the time my mother-in-law was gluten-free, trying to talk me into it. And so I ended up losing 10 pounds just from cutting out gluten. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my goodness, what would happen if I cut out the sugar? But I still couldn't do it. And it wasn't, yes, right? And it wasn't until I had to figure out how I was going to pay for the life coach school that I got a second job. And so I was working. So on top of my 40-hour-a-week job, I was working another 4 hours a night. Wow. So about another 12 hours a week. And I was a health and wellness coach for a local chiropractor, which we sold supplements in a particular diet. And so I did the diet myself and was able to lose all my weight. After I returned from the life coach school, the stress of trying to get certified, the stress of trying to start a new business, my weight started to creep up again. Mm-hmm. And that's when some of my peers mentioned to me, like, Angie, if you're going to be a weight loss coach, like you're going to have to use these tools on yourself. Mm-hmm. And so then that's what I started doing. And I was able to once again lose that weight, and now I'm able to maintain it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say? Was it just the eating, or was it your diet and exercise? So was running like your choice of fitness, or what else did you do on top of that? Because I know a lot of people too, I've been one that have tried all the fad diets. I'm like, I'll do the Atkins, I'll do South Beach, I'll do clean eating, and then I'm going to do the keto diet, and then, I'm going to do weight training, and then I'm going to try this. So what was your combo that worked for you? I know it's different for everybody, but what was the eating plan and the fitness routine that you did that helped you maintain what you are?
Okay. So when I was accepting the weight for what I was after I had Sebastian, I was working out 3 times a week because for the military, you have to stay fit. You have a certain standard that you have to meet. And so I was running 2 miles every other day, doing push-ups, doing sit-ups, and I wasn't seeing any changes. But I was eating at that time whatever I wanted within, moderation to try to keep my weight at what I thought was acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And once I lost the weight, it was all due to diet. And it was mainly a paleo-based diet, but no flour and no sugar and very limited fats at that time.
Mm-hmm. So in case if somebody doesn't know, like the paleo, can you kind of just give like a quick overview of like what kind of diet that is?
Okay, so the best way to explain it is it's the caveman diet. So everything that the cavemen would have ate way back in the day, that's what you would eat now. And so things like meat, veggies, and fruit, that's pretty much what I stick to even now. Healthy fats that are naturally found, avocados, nuts. I still do dairy, but I do the no hormones.
Mm-hmm.
In the dairy, and it's pasteurized at a lower temperature, so it's at a pretty natural form.
Mm-hmm.
And then also any type of grains or flours that would be found naturally.
Okay, good. So now you did that, and then what kind of exercise were you doing with that? So you were still doing like the push-ups and more strength, or were you mixing cardio in there as well?
Because I limited my calories so much at that time, I was hardly doing anything. I was walking and I was doing sit-ups just to maintain what I needed to maintain to meet the military standard, and same with the push-ups. And so that was like 20 push-ups every other day, 50 sit-ups every other day, and then maybe a mile walk every other day, 3 times a week. So now I'm still kind of doing that same thing. I walk a little bit more. I run every once in a while. But I'm sticking to that paleo diet because that's what works for me. I've tried ketogenic, I've tried protein shakes and all that stuff, and I don't like the feelings of being deprived or seeing that number on the scale increase and not knowing what I did wrong.
Right. And I've done that. Like that was the issue that I had too. After I had our triplets, that's what I was like, the easiest way I know to go is Atkins. So I cut out all the carbs and just wasn't even paying attention to if it was the good types of fats. And, it was kind of just whatever it was, as long as it didn't have carbs. But again, you feel that restriction so that when you do give yourself that cheat day or that cheat meal, and you can feel like the bloating and the increase on the scale. And then when I tried to readjust and kind of go back to a healthier lifestyle and then transitioning back into like Weight Watchers just to try to gain that under control, you have that fluctuation. And I know that's not healthy for your body at all, but you do have to try to figure it out and see what works best for your body. But if you feel deprived, it's never going to work because it has to be something that you sustain long term. But yeah, I agree. Exactly. I think that it is something that it's all about what you eat. I've heard that from a lot of other people like that I've personally talked to, or podcasts that I've listened to where everybody says that it's all about what you eat. And usually the weight falls off and your body just maintains it on its own with just a little bit of moderate exercise mixed in there as well.
Yeah. And that's one thing too, when I did that diet with the chiropractor that I worked for, I for 40 days did the limited calories and the limited amount of food. And it was brutal. And that is why I couldn't stick to that today, because of feeling deprived. And so now, giving myself the permission to eat what I want, 'cause I don't count calories now. I just stick with the fruits, veggies, and meat and fats, and I eat as much of it as I want until I'm full.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that deprived. And I can schedule a cheat day or a joy food day is what I call it. And, feel really good about it versus feeling deprived and then just going off an all-out binge and falling off the bandwagon, as some would call it.
And that's what, I know that you probably have this with your son too, that, when we take our kids out for ice cream or frozen yogurt or something, and there was a point where I would sit there and I'd watch them eat it. And I'm like, oh, I can't have that. I can't. It's dairy. It's, it's not on my diet, or it's not my cheat day, or whatever it is. It's like, no, you can do it in moderation, everything in moderation. And finding that balance and not associating the guilt with it too is huge. So when you find something that you can give yourself that grace period, and as long as, most of the time you're putting the right foods in your body, then you can have those times where you can enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, even getting really creative, because ice cream is my weakness as well. And I actually just discovered bananas and cream pureed and frozen create an ice cream. And I'm like, both of those are on my protocol. Like, how perfect.
Yeah.
This whole time I had all this mind drama over ice cream, and I could have it the whole time. I just had to get creative.
You do. And that's what I feel very grateful for, the fact that now, that more people are wanting to eat organic or natural. And there's all these different alternatives where, I'm sure you probably felt the same way, like in college, it was kind of like, well, you eat what you can afford and you take what you can get. And that wasn't really anybody's top priority, or if you did, it was so expensive. But now there's so many different alternatives that make it more affordable, and different recipes, and, looking on Pinterest for like, let's get creative if it's low carb or no dairy. And then you're like, okay, good. Like, I can still have what I want, and it can still fit my lifestyle.
Yep. Even like the cauliflower pizza crust.
Yes!
That is becoming really popular. Yes. Yeah, you can still have your pizza.
Absolutely. So now with your son, how is he as an eater? Because I feel like I struggle to get my kids to eat anything, let alone, God forbid, it be green or somewhat healthy. So do you kind of stick to just as long as he eats, that's great? Or is he really good? Because I know some kids are very adventurous and they'll try anything. So how is he with eating?
Okay, so my son goes to daycare during the day, and I've already looked into bringing our own food, because he's got a little bit of an allergy issue with seasonal allergies. And I know with me, cutting out wheat has really helped a lot with my allergies. But our daycare, paying as much as we do, it's like $1,000 a month, but they provide the food in there. And it's like, do I really want to be bringing the food plus paying this price, or do we just work on it at home? And so that's kind of what we do. At home for breakfast, he has oatmeal and granola bars. Sometimes banana, fruit, that type of thing. And then in the evening, we stick to the paleo-based diet pretty strictly. And so a lot of times he has 2 breakfasts and he has a lunch at daycare. So a lot of times at night, he's not even hungry. But it just depends on his mood. The last 2 nights, he's ate tacos with us. And tonight we had sausage and zucchini. And I think my husband's feeding him right now. So
here's hoping, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yep. And even if too, he just eats a little bit of sausage, like that's fine. A lot of times we'll give him healthier fruit in the evening, or my new ice cream with the bananas and cream,
Sneaky. It's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So being a mom, a full-time working mom, and pursuing your business, what do you feel like has been the biggest struggle? And this could be any time from the time he was born up until now. So whether it was maybe a sleeping issue, or being away from him, or like you said, conquering the mom guilt. What do you think so far has been the biggest thing for you to overcome as far as motherhood?
It would probably be spending so much time away from him, like especially evenings are really hard when my husband's putting him to bed. I feel like I'm missing out on those baby years right now, because I don't get to rock him to sleep and snuggle him and that type of thing. So that's probably been the biggest struggle for me.
Now, what about, does he still nap at daycare?
He does. Yeah.
So does he still nap on the weekend?
No.
Yeah.
He has fought sleep since the day he was born.
Yeah. That's how my son is. I know a lot of moms struggle with that too. Like either some people are like, we have great sleepers, and other ones are like, nope, like something that we've always struggled with.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice that you wish that, or maybe one nugget of information that you wish that somebody would have told you before becoming a mom? Like you thought like, man, like somebody said this was so easy for me, but this was really hard for me. Or I thought I could have been more prepared for this. Like what's one thing that you didn't feel prepared for?
Just being flexible. So I am such a planner to begin with. I'm so organized. And I wanted to breastfeed really bad when I had Sebastian. And I didn't think I'd be one of those moms that had a low supply.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And so Sebastian wasn't sleeping, which he didn't like sleeping anyways. And I had a low milk supply and I was up every couple hours. And, I was determined in the beginning to make this all work.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got to the point where I was like bawling every time I had to wake up, and I'm telling my husband, I can't do this. And he's like, no, I'm here to support you. I'm going to help you. And I mean, it was a mess the first few weeks until we started him part-time on formula.
Mm-hmm.
And once I could let go of Angie, this is okay. Just feed your baby. You're doing all that you can. You're being the best mother that you can be,
Mm-hmm.
even if you can't breastfeed. And so just being really, really flexible. I mean, that's with everything, just like you were saying with food, sometimes your kids won't eat it and sometimes they will. You just don't beat yourself up over something not working.
Right. And I think as moms, that was something that I struggled with too. And I know some of my girlfriends have struggled with that as well. When you have this idea in your mind about how it's going to be when you have your child and, whether you want to be a breastfeeding mom or not, or you want to stay at home or you go back to work. And when that plan doesn't fall into place and you have this thought and then accepting the new reality, I think sometimes that can be very hard because you've built it up in your mind that I want to breastfeed so bad. And that was something that I wanted to try as well. But my body was like, you're shut down. Like we're not producing any milk. And I was like, oh, I really wanted to experience that, as a mom and feel that connection. I feel like that's something that really helps you bond with your child. And then the guilt seeps in like, okay, so am I not bonding with my child? Am I not going to be at close? Am I missing out on that? But then you find other ways, to create that bond or, then you become more flexible and you figure out a different alternative. But I think that's a great piece of advice because it is with anything, with parenting there, you have to be flexible. You never know what your day is going to be like, or even one moment to the next, what's going to happen. So just being flexible and being able to jump from one scenario to the next without getting bogged down, I think it's very helpful.
Yeah. And like even too, we ended up putting Sebastian in his own room at 3 months, which, society is like, no, you should have them near you because of SIDS and all of that. And I had to leave for military training for a month after he was a year old. And after that year, he didn't want to sleep in his room anymore. Mm-hmm. So we ended up then switching to co-sleeping, which once again, society is like, no, don't co-sleep. And friends are like, no, I can't believe you guys do that. But you do what works for you and you stay flexible.
So that's what I was going to ask you too. So we do, like, as society, I know that I've kind of felt those pressures of what kind of mom I should be and, all these shoulds. And so how did you deal with that? Was that something that you felt like really got to you and weighed on you and you had to work through? Or was it just that you knew in yourself and in your heart that this was what worked best for us? And I know that you say that this isn't something that works for you, but this is something that works for us. How did you handle that?
I've actually only been having to really deal with it lately with friends because they're like, we go camping in the summertime. And so me and Sebastian, we blow up an air mattress on the floor in the camper and we sleep, and my husband, he gets the main bed, and people are like, what? Like that would never happen in my house. So I've really only had to deal with it lately, but I mean, just sticking up for yourself, saying, hey, we all need to sleep. And if this is what works for us, that's how we get our sleep. Like, if you don't think it's right, that's not my problem.
Right. Exactly. And I think that a lot of times, it's easier to judge when you're in somebody else's shoes, but then when it's in your own household, and especially if sleep is on the line, I think you're like, look, I will do whatever it takes to get some shut eye around here. Okay. Everybody functions better without sleep or with
Absolutely.
sleep.
And I've been guilty myself at looking at a lot of my friends thinking, oh my goodness, they're co-sleeping, like before Sebastian came along. And now it's like, why did I ever judge those people? Like I had no right. I did not understand at all.
Oh, I know. And I think everybody always has their opinions. Even if they do have kids and they're outside looking in, everybody has their own opinions, but you do what works best for you and your family, and then everybody else will be just fine.
Yeah.
But what kind of advice can you give to a mom who is either a new mom or maybe a mom that, their child is a couple years old or maybe even older, who is still struggling to lose that weight? What is one small step? Because I think sometimes it can get to that point where they just feel so overwhelmed and they don't even know where to begin, and they've just accepted that this is how they're going to be. what one small shift can you tell them so that they can get started, and just being able to give them that little push, like, whether it's just changing a diet or maybe trying an exercise or maybe even a mental shift, what would you suggest?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is getting a coach, obviously, because they're going to be able to help you pinpoint what roadblocks are going on in your head that are keeping you stuck where you're at. But as far as just a little shift that people could do on their own is look at how you're feeling when you're eating. So if you're feeling stressed out and you're eating versus if you're feeling good and you're eating, I have a lot of clients that actually go out and celebrate with food. And so for them, they're feeling really good and they're eating, which it all feels completely normal to do that. But how often is somebody doing that? Are you going out and celebrating every little thing every single night with Dairy Queen ice cream, Or if they're feeling stressed out and eating because of that. And then looking at what are the thoughts that are causing those feelings. I think just having that awareness right there could stop people from taking the action of overeating and getting the results of gaining weight versus losing weight.
Yes. Give me just 1 second. My dog pushed open the door. So before you hear everything that's going on in my household, hold on 1 second. Okay. Like we said, the joys of motherhood, it's like never like a quiet moment on there. But I think that is a really good piece of advice, because I know that that's something that, I've struggled with too. It's like, like celebrating the small things, like, okay, where you're like, oh my gosh, like, okay, it's Friday night. Let's go out and let's get some pizza and ice cream. And then tomorrow's a birthday party, so I'm going to have some cake and ice cream there too. And, like you said, just kind of doing that. And one thing I've also had to overcome too is being like the emotional eater or the anxious eater, and thinking about my thoughts before I go in there and like have that food, and thinking about that too. It's like, okay, well, wait, I know I'm not hungry. So kind of doing that body scan and thinking like, okay, that's not the real reason I need to eat right now. I'm not hungry. I don't need to eat. It's just something that I'm going for to calm whatever emotion it is inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really
yeah. And just one other little tip too, if they are wanting to enjoy a food that doesn't work with their body, causes them to gain weight, to give themselves a 24-hour notice before eating it. So then that can give you the time to actually think through versus using that subconscious mind to make your decisions for you. You're actually using your prefrontal cortex to make the decision for you. So if you're stressed out and you're wanting that Heath candy bar, this happens to me all the time, tell yourself in 24 hours, if I still want that candy bar, I'm going to have it then, but I'm not going to have it right now.
Oh, that's really good, because I think that's very hard, because I think it's very impulsive when you're like, okay, like I'm going to go grab that, because I've done that before. Like if there's something that I'm really craving, I'm like, oh, I'll get that. And if it has been like a bag of like all those like Twix is like mine. So like if it's like a bag of like those mini Twix, I'm like, oh, I'll just have a mini Twix. But then I know in the closet, I still have that huge bag of all the small little ones. And I'm like, I'm just going to sneak one more. So it's like, I try not to even bring that in the house, because my self-control would not be like thinking 24 hours later. All I'd be thinking is Twix, Twix, Twix.
Yeah. And you learn a lot about yourself just by making yourself do that 24-hour notice. Like, oh, I'm stressed out right now. That's why I want that candy bar. Or, oh, I'm feeling good, so I want that candy bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. These have all been amazing pieces of advice. So I've really appreciated you sharing this. But tell everybody about you. Where can they find out more information about you? What do you have coming up next? Like what's on the horizon for you with personal business? If somebody wants to reach out to you for any life or health coaching, where can they reach you, and what do you have coming up next?
Okay. So you can find me at www.angiegross.com. Right now I am doing strictly a membership option, for coaching. Just because I'm so limited for time to do one-on-one, I'm doing the membership. And from there, I'm thinking about breaking off into smaller group memberships. So we'll see how this bigger membership goes, and then maybe breaking it off into smaller options. But www.angiegross.com, that's my website.
And you are also in the process of working on your own podcast, right?
Oh, yes, I am. So I'm hoping that that will be out and about by September 1st. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
So is that something when you do have that, is that something, are you going to announce it on social media or is that something that's going to be on your website? Like how will people know about it?
Yeah, I'm going to have the podcast both on my website as well as my social media page. I'm big on Facebook, so Angie Gross Coaching, and I will be announcing it in both those places. So
Okay, wonderful. Well, everybody make sure that you follow her on social media, check out her website, sign up for any newsletters so that you can stay in touch with everything that she has going on. And Angie, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and all of your information and tips. We have appreciated it. It's been amazing.
no, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.